The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRCMedia, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
The municipal election in Fall River takes place on November 4th, and we're doing what we can here at FRCMedia to speak to as many candidates as possible so you can make informed decisions when you go to the ballot box. We're going to focus on the race for City Council today, and please be joined by one of the incumbents looking for another term, Andrew Raposo. Andrew, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks for having me.
So let's get right to it. You're looking for a third term in office. I guess, what have you learned over the first two terms, and what do you think you need to do to get reelected?
Continue doing the work that I've been working on. Huge thing is working with people. Constituent services has kind of been a core of what I've been doing. I try to be as present as much as possible at different city events because that's really where you talk to people and you get to know what's going on and the issues that people are having, but also to market and connect yourself with people as well. So it's been good. I've enjoyed it. Over time you get a little thicker of a skin with some of the issues that go on because you really can't please everybody. But really working together with people has been the core of my success thus far, and I hope I can continue to do that into a third term.
There's so many issues that face a city like Fall River, and we'll get to some of them during our discussion. But what do you feel, if you are elected to a third term, will be your top priority over the next 2 years?
So I think it's an extension of what I've already been working on. Perception is reality to me and to a lot of people. So when people see a dirty city, see trash, they see graffiti, they see things not upkept, people begin to question the quality of where we live. So that's one of the big things I want to continue working on is making sure that we get our streets cleaned. Graffiti has been a kind of a thorn in my back for a while, but we're happy to say that we've been cleaning that up. We got the machine through the Bristol County ARPA money. They've been working on it just this fall, and they're going to continue working on it. I think we're more proactive with it, and people don't see it as much. They're going to begin to say, okay, we're making forward progress. So that's one of the big things for me is critical.
You mentioned the word trash. No, in your context, you were talking about trash in the streets,
yes.
But trash has been a big expense for the city, and the city's about to negotiate a new contract with a disposal company that will pick up the trash in Fall River. There's environmental issues with trash, but also just the cost has been very prohibitive for the city. And I know more needs to be done with recycling and get that information out there. How do you view the trash situation in Fall River, and how can a city council help?
So I think it comes down to the recycling. I think is a huge piece. I don't think we do enough recycling. Before I felt the city did more, and now that we don't have any program, really a solid program in place, there's less incentive to do it. I think if we recycled more, and there's also some pilot programs. I know they were working on the cardboard program, which I thought was a pretty good idea. And it just seems like it hasn't been expanded as fast as we would hope it to be. So I'd like to see that continue. The reality is the situations around us are not getting any cheaper. So we're kind of feeling that blowback, especially from the state level. So my hope is that we can continue to work together. I hope with the negotiations are ongoing about trash, there's going to be some give and take and hopefully some relief for the residents because it's becoming a huge expense to the city. And then at the end of the day, it trickles down to the residents, which is a concern for all of us.
There was a report a few years back, I believe, in 2020, of course, the pandemic was happening at that time, about, making the DCM facility at Lewison Street a transfer station. Now, the work's being done on that building. I know I did ask the mayor about that. He said that may be something that they can discuss, and he's thinking that maybe use it more as a facility where the city can do more of its own sorting in terms of getting more efficient with recycling. Are you in favor of a transfer station and obviously charging other communities to use us?
I think that's a great idea. I think we have a facility that can be better utilized than what's being utilized now. And we can also look to reduce some of our costs. So if things come in that can be sorted and then transferred appropriately versus it being transferred a long way and then, oh, wait, you got to pay extra for this because it's contaminated. I think if we can cut some of that back, I think we actually help ourselves. But then we always talk about revenue. How can we generate more revenue for the city? Here's a perfect opportunity where other communities can bring their items to us. We can do that work and then transfer it as we need to. I think it's an opportunity to, again, raise revenue for the city and, again, stop always going to the taxpayers for additional taxes or fees or whatever it may be.
The city budget with the enterprise funds of water, sewer, and EMS is now over $500 million. A big chunk of that, obviously, is the school department. The city has received a lot more money through the Student Opportunity Act. But the city side has also had to chip in a little more as well. I know you're really diligent during the budget time. You asked a lot of questions, but a lot doesn't end up being cut at the end. I know you've thought about this before. Are there opportunities to cut? Is it a matter of, some will say we need to cut the budget, we need to do better for the taxpayers, but is it more of that, or is it more of making sure that the money that the city does get, whether it's $500 million or $500,000, is spent in a way that's efficient for the city?
So I think it's a little bit of both, but the efficiency is what I'm more concerned about. I think the revenue that we do get in from taxes, people want to see a return for their investment, really. And I think in many ways, taxes are an investment in the future of the city. So if people are not seeing roads taken care of or potholes filled or things like that, they begin to question. I think that's where a lot of the conversation comes about from the budget. There are some elements of the budget that are contractual, that are hard to pull back from. And I think that's a conversation with the administration about when you negotiate contracts. Again, that's not really our responsibility as the legislative branch. But I think in good stewardship, we should talk to the administration and say, listen, we got to stay within a bounds of somehow of what we're going to do. So I think some of those things are contractual. You mentioned the school department. We're obligated to handle that situation. And again, education is important. As an educator myself, I know. But I think there are some smaller things we can try to work at and try to cut down. And I think the council did a little bit of that this year, and prior year did as well. But the problem is, I think if people think we're just going to cut hundreds of millions from the budget overnight, it's not a reality. It's hard. It's hard work because, again, you're talking about people who work for the city or reducing services for the city. So there's the other concern. If we start cutting too much, then you run into a problem. Are the quality of services going to continue? Are they going to reduce? Are they not going to exist? So I think from a large standpoint, you look at that number and you go, that's a number, and it's growing and it's a concern. But the other side of it is, at what cost, no pun intended, what will that be if we make major changes to it?
Yeah. Police and fire staffing has always been an issue. I'm sure in the 4 years you've been there, in terms of, both police and fire departments want more, need more. Fire department's moving in a direction right now that it looks like they may apply for a federal SAFER grant to get more positions, I believe up to 10.
Yes.
There's been, negotiating with the firefighters union about staffing of the apparatus to where it is more reflective of national standards. Again, how is a councilor, because again, the council can only approve, reject, or reduce the budget. It can't actually formulate or move money around. But, what can a councilor do, maybe in terms of public safety specifically, to maybe get the ear of the administration? And I'm sure, regardless of whoever the mayor is, I'm sure they want to fully staff police and fire to a level that is needed, keeping to account that money does need to be spent there.
Correct. So advocating is huge, and I'll use the fire department particularly. So I've been talking a lot with the administration and with some firefighters as well of the quality of the buildings in which they live. The reality is that firefighters are unique. They spend a lot of time in those houses. It's practically like the house they live in. And I spent some time over the summer walking with the interim city administrator through some of the buildings. And just some of the things that I saw were like, these are small things that could be taken care of over time, or delegated to be done. And I think the small things matter, but the small things add up to become bigger things. And then they become a huge problem that we now can't particularly solve. So one of the things when it comes to the apparatus, we have to come up with a better plan of replacing apparatus. And one thing I've already said to the administration out loud in a city council meeting is we need to have a capital plan that is funded, that every year or every 2 years we're ordering apparatus, because the amount of time it takes for apparatus to come in, that turnover time is almost 3 years now. So if we wait another 2 years to order, plus 3 more years, we're running out of time. So I think we need to come up with a diligent plan to invest into the city for the safety of our city when it comes to apparatus. And that's not just fire department, it's the police department, EMS as well. But it's particularly the fire department, I'm a little alarmed of the quality of some of the houses. And I think some have fallen by the wayside. Now, I know the administration has done some work and they're moving in a better direction of getting it taken care of. But again, it's always reactionary, and I don't want it to be. We should be proactive, more proactive than we are sometimes. So I think it's a due diligence on the council, due diligence of the administration, whoever it may be, to work together to get some of these things done. Because again, it's the safety that's the concern.
Another topic that has been of concern in watching city council meetings is just general staffing across city government. I mean, Fall River has done a better job, I believe, in raising the level of pay for people, either through union contracts or, those that are not in unions, just, personal contracts. But we hear a lot that, Fall River will lose someone to another community because the city doesn't pay as much as others. How do you balance as a counselor when it comes to budget time to say, yeah, we're spending a lot of money, but we're also, maybe shortchanging some of our positions because the city can't afford to pay the same rates as some of the other, even gateway cities across Commonwealth.
Correct. And I think one of the things for me, you got to lift the bottom up. And I think that's not what's happening right now. There's a lot of people who are been working for the city for 15, 20 years and haven't really seen a substantial increase in their time. You can't replace institutional knowledge. You can't replace somebody who's been there for 20 years with someone brand new who's going to have to relearn all these things. And not having the history and the knowledge behind it is difficult. So it's twofold. You have the clerks and the people who work in City Hall and in other places across the city who I think are of value to what we do, but we need to invest further into them. On the other side, you need to have qualified leaders and qualified administrators and department heads to do the jobs. And I know right now the city is struggling to maintain some of those department heads and administrators, and a lot of it is because the pay in comparison to other cities around us. So we have to remain competitive while maintaining the service level that we need to provide.
For the second election now, a lot has been made about cost of living in Fall River, rents especially. Again, it's not a Fall River only problem; it's a national problem. The city council really can't do that much there in terms of a lot of people say, well, the city council must do more in terms of making sure taxes don't go up because maybe landlords, if taxes go up, they pass that along to renters. The city council has limited duties in this. And how frustrating is it for you when you talk to people that complain to you about, oh, my rent's going up, I can't afford it? How do you answer that?
It's hard. I mean, it's hard, but I would rather just be honest with people. And I've said it to people before. Unfortunately, that's not in our wheelhouse as far as a legislative branch. We can, again, advocate. We can speak to the administration, Mayor Coogan at this point right now, to say, listen, we need to cut back. But then when there are some opportunities that we can say, you know what, enough's enough. Like we did water and sewer rates this past year. We said, no, it's too much right now. And here's an example of something we do have some control of. And I think universally we said, you know what, it's been raised enough. People are paying enough. We're going to say, you know what, not this year. And I think it was a due diligence on the council as a whole to say it's time that we stop. On the other side, again, it all goes down to quality of service and the services we have versus the cost it has to be. But it's not as easy as people think it is. And that's the frustrating part. For someone like me who wants to be able to help people, there are certain situations like this that you go, it's just out of our control.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part.
In terms of neighborhoods, a city council, obviously we talked about this, constituent services is number one. That's the number one job. People call you, you reply to them and try to help them any way you can within your purview, right? Obviously, you're not part of the executive branch, but you can make a call on someone's behalf in terms of getting them the help they need. But in terms of the neighborhoods, a lot's going to be happening on the waterfront over the next few years. Route 79, the construction of that will be finished a year from now, hopefully. And then the work will be on how to develop that. But, what kind of attention should be made maybe to other parts of the city, and including downtown, which a lot of people says needs a lot of work?
Yeah, so I'll use the Flint as the example. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the Flint naturally because being the principal at Espero Santo, and I drive through it every day in and out of work. And I think the Flint particularly has a lot of potential. But expanding that thought, the neighborhoods leading up to the waterfront are as much as important as the waterfront itself. And I think that's something we miss. For example, just yesterday, somebody messaged me and said, hey, there's graffiti on the brand new off-ramp coming off of 79 to Duval Street. And I said, well, we need to get that taken care of. Because again, if that's the first thing people see driving into the city, they're going to go, yep, nope, see you later, and continue on 195. So that area is important. So is the Flint, so is the South End, so is the Maplewood, so is everywhere. We need to make sure that we're maintaining what we have to a great quality because, again, perception is reality. We want a clean city. We want a city free of graffiti. We want to make sure that services are there. But we need to build up our neighborhoods. And the downtown is right. It's struggling a little bit. There are a few businesses which are doing decently well, but then there's empty storefronts. What can we reimagine? I think it's time that we begin to reimagine what some of these things are. Like the Flint. A lot of the businesses of yesteryear are no longer. There are some still successful, but I think we need to now reimagine some of the buildings there. Housing is a need. Continue to build housing, and again, a mix of affordable housing, good housing. We need to continue to reinvest. Having empty storefronts and empty buildings are serving nobody any purpose.
Yeah. In terms of the waterfront and Duval Street, you've seen, I'm sure, what a perception could be of what can go down there. What are your thoughts on what should be down there?
Well, I think it should be a mix of things. I mean, I don't think it should be too much housing. I don't think it should be flooded with too much traffic because then I think it loses what the purpose is. I don't know if there's a 100% great answer to that question other than we, again, have to reimagine it. I think right now, in my head and I think in others, having housing, having local restaurants, having an ability to go enjoy a night out on the pier. It's one of the things over the summer I did. There was the concert that the Narrows put on at the Norton Pier was amazing. And you look around the crowd, and it's a lot of people, both not only from Fall River, but from outside of Fall River, coming into the city to enjoy an event. So, and that's just where we are right now. Imagine if we have some additional restaurants or shops or things like that, as well as places just to sit and relax. I think that is conceptually a great waterfront that will be successful going forward. But the key is working together to make it happen and listening to the input and listening to people who've been here a long time, who have a lot of great thoughts to what it can be. It's all about taking it in and working together collaboratively. I think that's how we'll be successful, not only with this, but in other projects going forward.
All right, City Councilor Andrew Raposo, I appreciate your time. Good luck in the election. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, and thank you for joining us here at FRC Media. And please vote on Tuesday, November 4th.